Hello, everyone. Welcome to Meta Mentality. Big news as the Vancouver Titans have just announced their new roster after dropping the entire roster of their previous winning season or runner-up season, as well as their new additions of Fisher and Ryu Jae-hong. They have now dropped that entire roster, as many probably know, and we now know who their new roster is going to be. The Titans have signed Randall Rolf Stark, Dalton Benioff, Samir Suna Ikram, Adbin Shredlock Shirvani, Adumaldi KSAA Aruwali, Carson Karkar first, and have added to their staff Flubby, Pugh, and Wheats. So we now know who this team is. As has been reported, many of them are coming from Second Wind, although we have some new additions that we weren't expecting to see. The real question is, how's this team going to fare? Now, it's goes without saying that we're going to see a dramatic dip in what we expected from this team. This was the team that was the runner-up, and for a long time last season, the strongest-looking team in the Overwatch League. We are now getting a an entirely Division Two team coming up and having their first shot at the Overwatch League. Uh, we expect them to probably finish in the bottom of the league. So the real question is this a bottom five team? Or is this a team that could maybe overperform and find themselves into the middle of the pack, maybe? Let's discuss that. What do you think, Beatdown? Where do you think this team ends up?
Well, I think the Vancouver Titans are going from almost for first to pretty much worst. And I know what people are thinking, but beatdown. They signed a contenders team before. What's the difference? There's a world of a difference. The runaway team were easily world-class players, and as soon as they joined the league, they proved what a lot of people already knew, that some of the top contenders teams could compete with the best of them in the Overwatch League. Not sure if that's going to be the case with this second win core. I'm gotta say it's pretty underwhelming, and I would not be surprised in the least bit if they finished in the bottom five. I'm predicting 17th because let's be real, Washington and Boston are still in the league.
Oh, oh, those are harsh words. What about you, Spencer? Where do you see these guys finishing? Do you think they can crack that above bottom five, or do you think that they're relegated to the basement?
Yeah, I was gonna say when you kind of position it as like an over under bottom five, like I don't think they're middle of the pack, right? Like I'm not on here to argue they're gonna be a 12th place, 10th place team. I just want to preface this with saying this is like literally breaking news. This has been announced like 7 minutes ago. I haven't had a ton of time to like really break down the individual players that are being signed. But I do think that there's a potential that this team can break out of the bottom five. I'm gonna put it that way. They will break out of the bottom five possibly. I think that we have talked about this before that and Beat That I mentioned this multiple times that the coaching staff from Second Win is really, really good. I've heard nothing but good things about them. I think that that's obviously an upgrade over the previous Vancouver Titans situation. So
Yeah,
that's a good
Pagion
thing.
did suck.
Yeah, exactly. So that being said, I think that's a bonus. It's obviously a lot of like the core players. I know some players aren't necessarily from Second Wind, but you got a lot of players who are, so they already have that built-in chemistry. I think you're currently seeing a lot of players in the league suffer from burnout. That's why you're seeing so many retirements, such as Corey, Stratus, Sinatra, players like this. And I do not think that's going to be an issue with the Second Win squad. I actually expect them to be extremely motivated coming from the contender scene, moving into the Overwatch League scene. So I expect these guys to be grinding it. I expect them to be fresh. Their first game is, I don't want to say a gimme, but at this point, if it's seriously Stratus and Tuba playing, I think they can beat the Washington Justice. So it's like I think it's like the longest yard, right? Where they always play the inmates the first game of the season so they can crush them to get some confidence going. The Vancouver Titans kind of got thrown that with the Washington Justice, where they can get a win in the Overwatch League, and I think that can give them the confidence that they need to move forward. I also always give a lot of respect to the Canadian guys out there too, with Shredlock and Rolf coming in. It's nothing
Yep.
but good things to see more Canadians in the league.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see that. And then finally, and this
Especially
is
Rolf.
always
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I'm always in the position that like I do think that there's something to be said with like a lot of like young talent and the fact that a lot of these players are like 18, 19 years old. So it's not like they just been kicking around the contender scene for like the last 3 years. And it's like, well, why hasn't anybody else picked them up? Like for players like Shredlock, this really was his first opportunity. He just turned 18. So I'm really excited to see what these players can do. They have built-in chemistry. They have a good coaching staff. They've obviously been scrimming and playing a lot in the contender scene. They've done well in the contender scene. And as Beatdown previously said, you got the Boston Uprising, you got the Washington Justice in the league. You got yourself the Chengdu Hunters, which might not win another game this entire league, being in the Asia division. You got teams like the London Spitfire, who are super unproven. I'm not in love with the Florida Mayhem entirely. I'm not in like I think there's a lot of teams that can crash and burn. Obviously, the Toronto Defiant have picked up crew, so they're going to come into like a top 5 position. Like just give that time. That hasn't happened yet. But I promise you.
Wow.
Is there a slash S in real life?
So we'll see. No, but seriously, I do think that there's a possibility that they can hit that like 15th, 14th position.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point in that they've got some veteran talent and a guy like Rolf, who is a guy that he was playing
He's been
for
around.
Cloud9 back
Oh
before
my
the
God,
Overwatch
yeah.
League was a thing. He was a guy that played for Team Canada for several seasons. I think like the first 2 or 3 years the Overwatch World Cup was around.
Yep.
And they have. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they've had They have some very exciting young talent like Shredlock, and I think some other players that are definitely a little bit.
I think Suna's like 19 years old. I think.
Suna, I could have sworn he turned 18. He's a young one.
You think he just turned 19. Either way, we're saying the same thing. Like he's really young.
Yeah, they're young.
Yeah.
I mean, with that being said, B10, do you think that there is the opportunity for them to maybe surprise? I mean, like based on what Spencer's saying here.
Sure, and everybody has a puncher's chance, as the saying goes.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, sure, it could be like the longest yard. They pretty much do get given a gimme, but I hope that doesn't give them too much overconfidence, because they're going to need a will for all the losses they're going to incur as well. And whether or not they can overcome that is going to determine whether or not they'll actually break out of the bottom 5, but it's a no from me, dog.
My last point is they are in NA, which means they're not playing.
There's some good NA teams.
I know, but there's also bad NA teams.
Sure, there's bad Asia teams. You talked about Chengdu.
1 every 3 games. Yeah, but Chengdu's the only one in the Asia division. 1 every 3 games is going to be the Boston Uprising and the Washington Justice. Now, assuming the Justice, I mean, we don't know who the new DPS players are. I mean, obviously, if they sign these incredible players, and I'll eat my, you know what I mean? Then change. If the Boston Uprising get a Fisher, a Slime, like who knows? I don't think so, but it might happen. That will change things. But given the rosters that we are currently seeing, I think they have a shot.
Well, I mean, it's a very different team than the Vancouver Titans were fielding just a couple of weeks ago. It'll be interesting to see, like you say, Spencer, if this team gets its second wind, as it were. If I get called up to the Overwatch League, you're welcome for that.
Just broke. You must have just thought of that. Good job.
That's insane.
We'll see if that gives them the hunger, the excitement to make them a better team than people have them pegged as. It's not impossible. We've seen the LA Valiant come out swinging and really provide some entertaining games and some.
That's because Packington's Coach of the Year.
Yeah, well, we'll see if Flubby can also live up to that and surprise with some of his coaching. It's definitely not going to be the Vancouver Titans that people were excited to see at the start of the season, but there may be some hope for some glimmers of brilliance in the weeks to come. I guess we will see. Yeah,
the Battle of Canada just got a hell of a lot more interesting. It just got interesting, baby.
Toronto will still lose it.
Well, I think they now have equal.
We can have that topic. That's the next topic, okay? Will the Toronto Defiant beat the Vancouver Titans? We'll see.
There you go. We'll see.
But I will take the Defiant in that one.
For Canadian fans, it'll certainly be a lot more fun to see that rivalry than it was going to be before. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And now they both, I think, have equal numbers of Canadian talent on their rosters. So.
Main roster. But you, baby. We still got 3.
Oh, that's true. Well, 2-way. On Montreal, but yes, that is correct. Toronto leads at least in that respect.
He's on Defiant. Montreal's done. They don't have more players. Everyone.
Oh yeah, I guess everything is all called up then.
Roku's
there, Mangachu's there. Yeah. Anyone that was on a 2-way is now effectively just a 1-way.
We got 3, baby. Let's go. I swear to God, if the Vancouver Titans actually sign a contenders team and do better than the Toronto Defiant have been able to do the past 2 seasons, I am going to be so triggered. I'm gonna be so. That's
it wouldn't surprise me, man. If the Titans get 16th, it's because Toronto's 17th.
If the Titans actually beat, I don't want to talk about this. I'm getting sad. Let's move on.
Okay.
Wrap it up.
All right. Well, it'll be an exciting match. I think that's going to be the one to look out for this Vancouver Titans. At least there's one bright spot to look forward to before the end of the season. Thanks for watching Meta Mentality. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on social media. Find out where to follow us in the links below.